great to be here. Monaco is exceptional. Even though I do come from the awesome town of Austin, Texas, it isn't even close to Monaco. I want to thank Distry for inviting me to talk at this conference. I've been aware of this conference. I actually had a real job for 20 years before I became an analyst and knew of Distry, but had never come here before. And I also want to thank you for joining us as well. So today, as you can see, what I'm going to talk about is the proliferation of form factors out there, the ecosystem changes that are happening, and the impact that it has on the channel, and also some things to think about strategically about the channel as you do your long-range planning. A lot of these speeches over the next couple days are some are short-term, some are long-term. This is really a long-term look at what's going to shape the next 3 to 5 years. So the first thing I want to do is take a look at, give an example of just how much things can change over a 5-year period. And let's take a look at 2007. The netbook, the Asus EEPC, was the hottest thing going globally. Vista was the shiny new operating system out there. Nokia was the powerhouse in smartphones with over 50% share. Android hadn't even been introduced yet. In fact, it wasn't even formed until 2006. Apple opened their App Store. They had iTunes out there, but they did not have an App Store. Netflix, nobody ever heard of in the US and Western Europe. Facebook had a meager 58 million engaged users per month. And finally, Twitter had a whopping 20,000 tweets a day. And this is before they came to Austin, Texas for the South by Southwest Festival. So what can happen in 5 years? Well, a lot. Netbooks really as a category don't even exist. They've been replaced by inexpensive PCs with 12-inch displays and up. And also the true promise of netbooks were embodied with tablets. Windows 8 is here. Nokia, as it relates to market share, is really just a shell of itself. Symbian, the operating system, has essentially been replaced by Android that has 75% market share in smartphones. 40 billion downloads from the App Store. Facebook has 1.1 billion monthly active users out there, and Twitter in itself is its own phenomenon. It's even hard to watch a TV show or a radio show or have some sort of internet meme that doesn't include a Twitter hashtag. So net, the world can change technologically in 5 years. So where does this put us in another 5 years on the road to 2017? That sounds like a long time, but it's really not. And I'm going to simplify this by asking you to think about 3 fundamental things that are going to happen. The first is the Internet of Everything, and I'll get into specifically what that is and the impacts that this has on the channel. The second is device modularity, the thought that we can separate different parts of a device. And the third is tighter and more vertical ecosystems. Let's hit the Internet of Everything. You know, as far as buzzwords go, it became machine to machine, then the Internet of Things, but then let's expand this even more to the Internet of Everything. And essentially, it's a lot easier concept. It's essentially making every device, relevant device that's out there, particularly in electronics, more intelligent, making it context aware. It knows about its surroundings and is able to communicate that information to either phone home or talk to another device beside it. And finally, they're interacted with not just a mouse and a keyboard, but our voice through machine vision, where we don't even have to know what the device is doing. So some of the relevant implementations that we see already, and as I looked at the floor on the conference, you see health devices to keep you fit, medical devices to keep you healthy, security, lock systems, for instance, that are Wi-Fi connected, jewelry like watches is the rumor mill these days, with Apple potentially bringing one out, home entertainment, specifically audio. Sonos has a huge following if you're willing to spend all that money to do this. Cars actually have more sensors in them today and in the future than almost any other device that we're looking at. And finally, new form factors. This may sound like a stretch, but it isn't. Think of the concept of a magic mirror that is essentially a subsidized display that's in your house that will give you basic information on weather to communicate with you, and by the way, show you ads as well, because it's a subsidized device. It's not too far off. So why should we even care about this in the channel? Well, a couple things. First thing is, there's a brand new wave of stuff that you can sell, and that's great. The second thing is an opportunity for you to become a trusted brand, because all of these different devices is going to need some help in people understanding them and pulling them together. Let me give a real-life example. Here's a company that I met with at the Consumer Electronics Show called MobiPlug. Now, today's environment, if you have a Sonos and a Schlage lock, or any type of these connected home devices, first problem is you have to have a separate app for every single one of these devices, and that's a challenge. The second thing is, most all of them use a different way of communicating. So, see all the different devices and all the different standards of communication? That's just, quite frankly, a mess. It was needed before, but this company actually pulls all these together with a single application and has this hockey puck looking device that talks all of the protocols and all of the different wireless languages of all of those devices. It's a very good opportunity, and this is a product opportunity to take advantage of it. Let's move on to modularity and displays everywhere. This is another mega trend, really driven by WiGig, or essentially the ability to increase communications wirelessly up to 10x over where they are today in your home with N-class Wi-Fi. So what does this mean? It essentially means that any smart device, smartphone, tablet, can wirelessly display high-quality video at very high resolutions. And think of this as an AirPlay, Apple AirPlay on steroids, okay? That works, is fast, and has a lot of implications here because it opens up the door that a smartphone or a tablet could be a primary device. The second thing is you're going to have displays everywhere in the house because it disconnects the need to have your display right next, wired, connected to the unit itself. Well, what does that mean to the channel? Well, you make a lot of money on cables today, and that has a risk of evaporating or slowly going away. Second thing is, if my smartphone, 3 to 5 years from now, can deliver a really good experience wirelessly, what does this mean to the PC? I don't know for sure yet, but that's something that my company is researching. So retail really needs to embrace mobility. If the center of the world has the potential or a scenario to be the driver in compute in the home, the channel needs to be the expert on it, and also display experts. So let's go into a real-life example. And again, I want to reinforce this is a scenario. I'm not saying PCs are going away. I'm just saying there's a scenario that says the smartphone is going to be even more important. So essentially, with high-speed processors and advanced applications going into smartphones has the ability to beam not just the display, but the entire experience to the next best display. And whether it's your phone to a tablet, to a notebook shell, to your TV, or even your car, there is a decent potential that this could happen. Now, it's not just wireless display that could make this happen. It's the fact that operating systems are modular. So whether it's Android, Windows, or iOS, you've probably noticed this. You write once, and you deploy on different size screens, whether it's a watch, a phone, a tablet, a TV, or even a car display, okay? And the second thing is scalable development environments that will sit on the operating system. So for instance, I buy one app from the Android App Store. Some of them work on the watch, they work on the phone, the tablet, and some of them even will work on full clamshell notebooks when they came out as well. So again, big implications to the channel because it's separating the core functions that used to be together or that are together today. Okay, so let's move on to the third one. And this is key. This is really key in that this is essentially shaken up most of the retail world today. That is, unless you are doing really well with telephone accessories or tablet accessories. And this is the concept of these ecosystems forming that will get even stronger, okay? So as you can see, this is who you would expect. This isn't the limit of the ecosystems that are forming. There's actually competitive ecosystems that are forming. Last week, Intel just announced that they were getting into the set-top box business, which I would call a sub-segment. It's based on Linux as opposed to one of these operating systems. So what are the implications here? So think of what these ecosystems have taken from the channel, and they're going to want a whole lot more, okay, than they even have today. And the reason is because if you fundamentally believe that to deliver the best experience with the right product, with the right channel, with the right apps, you need to own everything, the ecosystems are competing fiercely, and they're going to do everything they can to own everything. And this really sets up an interesting thing for the channel, and that's choice. Because in reality, consumers have fundamentally rejected singular ecosystems. And because they don't like it. They don't like to be locked in. Now, if there's this incredible differential value proposition, like Apple has had for a few years in mobility, that is the exception, but very rarely are they sustainable. And we just need to look at history and to see if that was true. So what is the channel impact here? Well, first of all, the people who were working with you, who didn't compete with you, are now fiercely competing with you. Sure, Amazon was always the enemy in this room, but as it relates to Google and Microsoft and Apple, these are relatively new phenomena where they're coming at the channel. They're partnering with the channel in some areas, but also some are testing the waters to do their own thing, but others are doing it because they feel they need to do it to compete with the other guy. So you have somewhat of a herd mentality. So let's give the real-life example. Let's see how much these companies have taken here. So first of all, you have the devices with all the 4 ecosystems. And you have the operating system. Now remember, up until a few years back, these were separate, okay? You had OEMs who did devices, and you had ISVs who did the OS, and it continued, right? You now have where retail and distribution used to have the content and the apps. Now, these ecosystems have the content and the apps. And in fact, all 4 of them offer in these different areas. And to make matters worse, Now in retail, so Apple is fully committed to retail. Microsoft is fully committed to retail. This is not some sideshow that these two companies are doing. These two companies feel like they have to own retail experience to be successful versus each other. And you may have read last week, now Google had tested demo stores, but you may have read last week that Google is absolutely committed to doing a brick and mortar rollout of their own products. And if they do, my guess it would be more like Microsoft in that it's not just their branded key products, but pulling from the Nexus brand of tablets and phones and Chromebooks. So I had started this off by saying these ecosystems are not going to stop here. So what could it possibly be after devices, operating systems, App Store, and the content, and retail? What could it be? Well, I like to use things called precursors. Precursors are things that happen that give you a hint of what's happening today that'll give you a hint in the future. So the first is install. The Apple geniuses could very well get into the install business for the intelligent home. Today they're at the store, but there's nothing to keep them from architecting a digital home and doing in-home service. And right now, particularly for high-end electronics, that's a big moneymaker, particularly for the install market. Second is distribution. The Amazon Locker is just another form of distribution. This is being rolled out in a couple countries. I know it is in the UK, where essentially, if you don't have mail order or you don't want to leave the product on your doorstep, you can actually walk into your local store where there'll be an Amazon Locker and you can unlock it. That's two-step distribution right there. The next one is telco, being your telco, wireless and wireline, and your security company. See, that's what Google Fiber is all about in that small town in the United States. It's giving enough bandwidth in a differentiated way to be your content company that might be particularly in Western Eastern Europe, satellite, your phone company. And the final thing is, once you get high bandwidth to each of these homes, there's no reason why you couldn't extend that to wireless as well. And finally, Google self-driving cars, it's about transportation too. So it's super important that all of you in this room internalize that these companies, you just need to be aware of where they're going, why they're going there, and how you play a part in that. Because if you're not, there's a chance you could get, unfortunately, swept aside in their battles with each other. Okay, so in summary, worlds in technology and distribution can change not overnight, but significantly in 3 to 5 years. You can go from being the #1 market share leader to #8 in 3 to 5 years. Look at Nokia. Look at BlackBerry. It can happen overnight. Retail, e-tail, and distribution needs to capitalize on that. And distribution is very, very resilient. You know how to do this. You need to jump in and find the right place. So first, there's the Internet of Everything. You have the ability over the next 3 to 5 years to be that trusted brand and pulling in multiple brands and either helping them pick out the right equipment that works together, maybe even using a solution like MobiPlug, or going into their homes and actually setting it up themselves. The Internet of Things is one of the next big waves. Second thing is modularity and displays everywhere. Separating storage, separating displays from the actual CPU itself. all indications are that that smartphone is going to become even more important. And maybe I shouldn't even call it a smartphone. It's some smart device that's small that when I walk in from my car, I'm going to set it on my wireless charging mat, and I may even sit at my 32-inch display with a keyboard and mouse. But I can do that because I've got that wireless display in here, and you've got all the modular operating systems that will be even better than they are today in 3 to 5 years. So you must do something with mobility, and something more. Add-ons are great, and accessories are super high margin, but it's got to be maybe 1 or 2 steps beyond that. Think for a second, if a customer said to you, consider displays, large displays are 30% of the cost as they are today. You have the ability, and the content will be there, to put multiple displays in the home. How are you going to be able to take advantage of that with multiple displays? And finally, the ecosystem war is just getting fiercer, and they want a piece of your action more than they do today. It's important to support alternative. There has yet to be an open alternative in mobility and PCs and tablets that has stuck. Linux kind of came and gone, and this is an alternative where retail can get a piece of the action here. Tizen is an example of an alternative that, when somebody comes to you and says, hey, what do you think about this? Maybe instead of saying, hey, yeah, for MDF, I'll do anything. Maybe it's okay, I realize that I need some alternatives here because the future might not include me. And second, and finally, with the ecosystems setting up their own stores, there's the scenario that says, hey, I'm part of retail and distribution, I offer it all. And no consumer is going to buy everything from a single company and a single brand. Life isn't like that. We already see the perception of Apple, which was here and then here, and Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon go up and down all the time. So keep that element of choice in your bag of tricks, and I believe that the consumer will repay you in kind. Okay. I want to thank you for your time today. Hopefully you've been able to take some of this information and insight, and it'll help you in your future strategic planning initiatives. Thank you very much.